Transmitting to you from Old Heart Radio.
Prepare to have your bones chilled and your hairs raised. It's the WacArnold's Brothers podcast.
Welcome home.
All right.
We're back.
It is. It's episode 8 of the WacArnold's Brothers podcast. Guess who this is? Well, you can't see my face. It's David. This is Jared. Well, I'm pointing to me. I'm Jared. You're David. They know this by now. Either way, how's it been going? How's I don't know. When's the last time you had ice cream, David?
Last week I had I can never think of the name. Like a sundae cone, a drumstick. But I haven't had a bowl of ice cream in a really long time.
Yeah. Well, sometimes I just feel like, good, just ice cream just hits the spot so hard for me.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. It feels like magic,
Yeah.
And,
Speaking of magic,
I've recently been. Speaking of magic, what's your favorite? Do you know any magic phrases or any magic words off the incantations or anything like that?
Abracadabra.
Abrakadabra. Oh, they're that cool. Oh, hold on. I feel like that's coincidentally the name of the movie we watched this week.
Huh. Weird.
Weird. So yeah, dude, you turned me on to this movie, Abrakadabra.
Yeah.
And when you texted me the premise of the movie, I was just like, I'm in. I absolutely am in. It's magic gone awry.
I was so shocked to realize that this movie was directed a couple of years ago, and because it looks like a 70s movie. Like it feels and looks and sounds like a 70s Italian giallo.
Yeah, giallo.
Which I love. Yeah.
Dude, you're spot on, man. It was I had to check the date multiple times because I was just I was when watching it, I was just so convinced. I was like, is this an old movie that was just recently re-edited or something?
Yeah.
It looks like they really capture that certain set that 70s type aesthetic, which there's that kind of grainy film. It's the lighting has these really it's really bright but really dramatic dark switches and
70 Italian horror movies in general, especially around late 60s through mid 80s, have a very distinct feel that is so different than anything that American. And I love it. Just like you said, the weird color palettes, the shots they do. It's fantastic. I love Italian horror, which I think I told you, I only recently got introduced to that, within the last couple of years. So there's Italian horror movies that are so epic that most people have never even seen or heard of,
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's something we have to do a couple more of these style movies.
Of course.
To talk about because they are and if you got some good ones, you got to turn me on to it because I've seen a handful, just random old Italian horror movies, but
I've got a list of some really good ones that I can give you. There's staples like Suspiria.
Oh, of course. Have you watched
The Bird?
Sorry, what was that?
Oh, what were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say, have you watched any of the other movies in that quote unquote series?
Yeah, I've seen all 3 of them.
Okay, I've never seen the third one. I've seen the second one.
Inferno is amazing, and that one came out a couple years later. And then the director Dario Argento, he waited until 2009 to make the third one, and it's nowhere near as good. But Inferno is one of my favorite. That movie is insane.
Yeah. But again, especially if we're talking about visual, the visual aesthetic brought to brought to movies by Italian horror directors, Argento is like right up there. Suspiria, one of the reasons I love that fucking movie is the use of color.
Yeah, and just the weird, garish like places that it's such a gorgeous movie. You're just immediately sucked in, and you're like, I have never seen anywhere that looks like this. It's just so different.
It's like, yeah, exactly. That you put it.
Same with like, have you seen Phenomena?
No.
So it's like it was made in the 80s, same director. It actually has Jennifer Connelly in it. She's like super young. And it also has oh my god, I know his name. He plays Dr. Loomis in the Halloween movies.
Oh, what the fuck is his
I know his name. It's killing me that I can't think of it.
Like
he's in it.
Old Loomis or like a Rob Zombie Loomis?
No, old Loomis.
Oh man, what is his name, dude? It is on the tip of my tongue. But okay, what's the general premise around it?
So that one's like another one where it's like it's not, Suspiria is at a dance academy, but it's another one where like a female goes to a different country, and she's at a all female boarding school, and then all these like murders start happening, and she's drawn into this mystery about it. It's really it's one of those movies where a lot of people have like some people don't think it's that great, or they think it's like a blemish on his filmography. I love that movie.
Dang, dude.
You'll have to watch it.
Yeah, definitely. Donald Pleasance, man. That was
Donald
the guy.
Pleasance. Yes, he's so great. He plays like this like anthropologist who's in a wheelchair and has a monkey. I can't, dude. Explaining it will not do it justice. No, you have to watch it,
dude. Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna have to watch the shit. But okay, Abrakadabra here. Abrakadabra.
Yes. Let's get into it.
Is like it jumps in right with like you learn the premise. And the premise is like guy 35 years ago, dude's magician father has a terrible accident.
Yeah.
Right? You jump right into that terrible accident.
Yeah.
And you find out he's like performing a trick, and there seems to be some sort of miscalculation with the bullet in this trick and it gets fired and actually kills this child's father.
Yes.
And that immediately you jump forward, and then you start to an older, what's his name, Lorenzo.
Yeah.
Lorenzo Mancini.
Yeah.
And he's definitely like a little, he's kind of grizzled. He's definitely seen his days, but I think one of the first shots you see of him is him riding up on a bike, looking all fucking fly. He's got Antonella on his back,
She's beautiful too.
Dude, and he rolls up and goes right up to this he rolls up to the crime scene at this place where he's he's performing.
Yeah, it's a theater, which coincidentally is the same one that his father died in.
Yeah. And that's what I love about these movies is like they really start like planting seeds like that. Like there's circles and they're gonna start running. But and so he gets let in. There's a brief interaction with the guy at the door. He's like, "Hey, you can't come in here." And he's like, "Don't you know who I am? I'm performing a show here."
Right.
And but he gets let in, and it's like quite the spectacle on stage because you don't really know that he's like fully going to a crime scene until he gets there, and then boom, like it looks like some sort of trick was performed, and there's all you see is like somebody body kind of sitting in a chair and like
it's called the box and the sword. So that's what the trick is called. But she's in gruesome fashion, dead with the box over her head. And you're just thrown into it immediately where they're questioning him, and it's like the night before his next big performance, and they're talking about how this is the same place his dad died, and so there's kind of just within 3 minutes you're thrown into what's going on with this movie. Yeah,
quite a bit, but that gives you time to like really sort of drag out these character moments that kind of happen. Like this dude Lorenzo is a fucking mess, man.
Yeah.
He's drinking all the time. just constantly seems like disheveled.
Yeah.
But yeah, you also get like pretty close here. You get introduced to what's the detective's name?
I don't even really think they ever say his name. You know what I mean?
No, I don't think they do. It's just like if you look at the credits, like it's just listed as detective.
Detective, yeah, because he's there and he Lorenzo gives him his alibi that he was with his assistant, which he was. And then it goes to their first magic trick, and it was one of those weird things where I didn't notice anything wrong with what they were doing, but they do this trick and it gets no response from the crowd. And then it shows them in the changing room, and he's like, he's upset. He's like, well, I don't know how the trick went wrong or all this and that,
Yeah. That's interesting, man, because like when watching this movie, you think it's you get the vibe that it's like a straightforward serial killer movie. Like there's somebody kind of like fucking with Lorenzo,
Yeah.
And it's hard to tell, like, because there's like immediately one of the things I love about this style of filmmaking is that there's all these like really sharp shots where like like the bathroom scene. There's this one scene where Lorenzo's in the bathroom and he's like having this moment, he's trying to collect himself, and just out of nowhere pops up the detective and he's like smoking,
yeah,
and it just kind of like zooms in on his face really hard, and I think those kind of moments really make this whole movie like way more dramatic. And,
yeah.
But yeah, like so
I like the next scene where he's playing cards to where you learn that like outside it, like he uses his magic outside of his shows because he's playing this high stakes game of poker, and when it first shows his hands, he's got a pair of threes, and then when they make this big bet, and then when he puts his hands down, he's got a pair of aces.
Yeah, man. Which that whole like bluffing sequence is really kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Because it involves like this like tough looking motherfucker. Like he's playing against like a couple other dudes, and one of them's got this like he's like a guy with like one eye, and the other eye is just like got this like I don't know, looks like a white metal piece on it. And you learn like basically that was interesting. It's like he's using his magic to try and like make gains for himself outside.
But it doesn't work out. Yeah.
He gets caught there, man. He gets beat the fuck up, I guess.
Yeah.
And like that kind of leads him to stumbling to I think Antonella's apartment, where he's like like love me kind of thing, and it seems like that's the first time you sort of learn that like they're maybe not as connected as
right. He tries hitting on her, and
yeah, and it's
rejected. Yeah.
She's like, you can sleep on the sofa, but that's about it, Lorenzo.
You
sneaky ass motherfucker.
And then there's like, the first, we obviously, like you said, he stumbles upon the crime scene, and it doesn't show, like, it kind of has this flashback sequence where it shows how she died, but the next death scene is really cool, where you see the whole thing play out.
Yeah. It's like this is the death scene with the shower sequence, right?
Yeah. And a cool thing about this is you notice is that the girl, as she's getting out of the shower, she puts on this necklace, which is seen in the beginning of the movie, and you see the same kind of necklace with this pendant throughout the movie.
Exactly. It becomes sort of a thing that Lorenzo kind of chases throughout the mystery. He finds it like again and again. Like
her death scene's awesome.
It is, man. It is. Just you describe it. I'll get the next.
So yeah, so she takes a shower and she gets out. She gets a phone call, but there's no one on the other line. So she kind of, from there realizes that there's something fishy going on, and she starts walking through her house to investigate, and she stumbles upon her living room and sees that there's like some magician stuff there. There's like a small guillotine, and then she just gets immediately put into it.
Yeah, dude. And like, the build up to the great moment is kind of interesting because like they don't again, like there's not really like a rush to any of this. I think it's because they like they jump you right into the mystery. There's like these moments where like you kind of like, sort of see her struggle in the guillotine, and it's like all this like kind of build up of her going like and then all of a sudden, bam, the guillotine strikes, and there's just this great shot of like the neck, with the head severed off.
Her head roll
like,
it, yeah.
Dude, it was such a cool shot.
And then like in typical, like this is another thing where I thought it was like a 70s movie, and because one of the biggest things that these Italian horror movies would do is it would never show the face or the person. It would just show hands. So it'd be like, and some of them it'd be like a killer's hands and black leather gloves or whatever. But in this one, you see that they're wearing like white magician gloves, but you only see the hands, so you don't know. Dude.
Yeah, like I did like that. Like it was, it kind of. I feel like it definitely reminded, like again, like it just reminded me so much of like older styles of filmmaking that like, and that was one of those. It's like, the mystery is, like from here to here. It's from the wrist.
Yeah, that's
to
all
the
you
elbow,
see.
Or the wrist down to the hand. That's all you see, and that's all you need, because you don't necessarily need the face. You just need like the action and the strikingness of the whole sequence.
It's like enough to keep you. Yeah, exactly.
And that was exactly what happened here. Like you get so distracted by what's happening that you don't even think about like, wait, who is actually doing that until it gets over.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a great scene. And then like goes to the next day. He wakes up, hungover and hurt. And Antonella's not there, so he goes looking for her at a bar.
Yeah, and he because he sees it's the Bangkok bar or whatever, and he finds like a matchbook in the apartment and tries to like go trace her there. Goes up to the bar, orders a whiskey on the rocks, asks the bartender. I just remember this so distinctly. Like, do you know this lady, Antonella? And then doesn't pay for his drink. He drinks it. And I just remember noting that he just drinks it and then just walks away casually. I was like, damn, that dude's slick.
Yeah.
But anyway, so he goes to the bar and he doesn't seem to have any luck finding her at first. So then he makes eyes at this other lady who makes eyes at him, and then he naturally drifts back to the
hookah bar. Yeah.
The hookah bar.
And she has the pendant on too, she's.
Yeah.
And then this bizarre menage a trois scenes happens. Yeah.
Yeah. He gets all you see him ripping the hookah. Then this lady just out of with the pendant just kind of pops up and starts dancing at the end of the table, and then it leads to this really bizarre sequence of this menage a trois sequence of this lady with the pendant, Lorenzo, and then presumably Antonella, right?
Yeah, that's her.
He just kind of drifts up and it's just sits down next to him and is like, hey, what's happening? And then the next thing you know, they're all banging. And that was strange because I remember thinking in the moment, I was like, this seems very very random for this movie, I was like, there's got to be something about this sequence that's not just Lorenzo's such a cool guy, he's going and picking up ladies,
Right.
But anyway, yeah, I thought that was a really random scene. But what's wild is that he wakes up from that sequence and is he's in bed with just the lady from the bar. Now Antonella's nowhere to be found in this moment, and she's dead. She is
she has
dead.
something around her neck,
Yeah, and again it's somebody with this pendant, man.
Yeah.
And so he seeing this, he's starting to have this a little bit of a freak out moment, and then the detective guy shows starts knocking at the door, and Lorenzo decides to dip out the window.
Yeah.
And then there's this great sequence. That's the chase sequence, right?
Yeah.
The detective's I thought it was so
just
funny.
Casually.
He's smoking and just walking at his regular pace, and Lorenzo's manically running away from him.
It was cool. Yeah.
It was, man. And something we haven't talked about yet with this movie is that is just in general the music and the sounds and the soundtrack of this movie. It really brings life to the scenes. like this sequence when it's just like immediately that like upbeat music starts like kicking in, and it's just sort of like, you know, the way that's like it's the shots kind of moving, and like the way, you know, Lorenzo's like the actor's like who's the actor's name, but the way he's like, you know, just sort of disoriented, like running it
frantically
like,
move, yeah.
It really hits you, and it's like in this kind of like equally fun but also, you know, in the gravity of the moment sort of way, which is really kind of cool. But yeah, so he gets chased down, and kind of like, you know, he sort of loses the detective at some point. But then is that when he ends up at the library of sorts or whatever?
Yep.
And he starts digging around, and he kind of finds, you know, some articles about the death of his father.
Yeah. And like one of the headlines, you learn that his father's assistant was like the main suspect, and subsequently, you know, went to jail for it.
Yeah. And this leads, you know, like I think all this kind of sort of stuff like prompts Lorenzo to like try, and he like grabs like a phone book or whatever and looks up the name of the his father's old assistant, and like tracks him down.
Gennaro. Yeah,
Gennaro. And then he goes he goes to visit Gennaro, and he kind of finds like an old ailing, you know, guy on oxygen, who like really just like doesn't necessarily seem, well, he seems like he kind of reveals that he was wrongfully accused. And he spent 20 years in jail,
and now he's on
whatever.
He's had a terrible life since then.
Yeah, but he also reveals, and I didn't know if this was like a serious thing or if it was like, you know, or whatever, but he reveals that you know, Lorenzo's father and himself were very close, not just friends, but he uses the phrase "we were brothers."
Yeah.
And I couldn't tell if it was like we were brothers, you know, like you know, camaraderie or whatever, or if it was like we were actual brothers, and like this is like your uncle that you're looking at right now, you know.
And he also mentioned something about like him not being the one that changed the bullet to the magic trick. Yeah,
exactly. He's like, I didn't, like he basically just tries to clear it up, you know. He's like, I just didn't do it, man. But then, you know, his mask kind of falls off, and I thought it was interesting. Lorenzo doesn't really help him. He starts Gennaro starts like struggling with breathing, and he just sort of like waits for the nurse to come in. The nurse starts like, you know, fixing him, and Lorenzo just sort of dips out, you know.
Before that, there's also something else that's interesting that happens there, where Lorenzo notices that Gennaro has one of the pendants too.
Oh yeah! Oh my god! Yeah.
And he kind of asks him about it, and Gennaro kind of says something a little obscure about, you know, Lorenzo being brainwashed about the situation. So you're kind of like, what's going on here?
Yeah, dude, that's right. That was one of the first moments where you're starting to be like, okay, like maybe there's something about Lorenzo's past that, like, you know, is a clue to all of this. Like in terms of like, maybe it's not about his father's mystery, maybe it's about him. There's
a lot of ambiguity, you know, because you don't really know what's going on.
Yeah, definitely.
But like you said, so Lorenzo leaves, and right away, you know, Gennaro meets his demise.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, right away, like the killer strikes again. So you see, like his nurse is like sleeping in the other room, and so the killer is able to kind of get in, and using whatever medication Gennaro was on, like fills up a whole syringe. It was like gnarly. Like you just watch him slowly fill up this whole syringe, and then he like sticks it in the dude, and Gennaro just starts like.
Well, he sticks it in the IV.
Oh yeah, he sticks it in the IV, and then it's, you know, he just basically just like starts foaming at the mouth and having a reaction, and you know, it's a
shitty way to die.
It is, dude. Especially because if you think about it, like all that dude, like he was just watching that happen. You know what I mean? Like he couldn't do anything about it. Like even if he struggled, right? The guy was like basically just a vegetable. It seemed like not very. I don't know. It just was a shitty way to go out. So yeah.
I forgot to mention that one of the things I liked about this movie is how short. You know, it was like a little over an hour, and it kind of just like there's no slow points or lag. Like the whole movie's like at a great pace, because he heads straight from here to Fabrizio's house, who you thinks is like manager, because he was at the beginning of the movie the one that let him into the club, and Lorenzo goes to his house and finds these pictures, like someone's been following Lorenzo, and kind of spying on him and taking pictures of him. Yeah. And
they end up having like an argument during this sequence, correct?
Yeah. And then Fabrizio gets a phone call and learns that his father's dead.
And he accuses.
Yeah.
Well, he pulls it. Yeah, you're right. He pulls a gun, right? And he actually accuses Lorenzo right there of being the killer or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's just interesting that they were like, I mean, just in terms of like these characters in this movie world, like that Lorenzo's potential manager or whatever is like the son of the guy who supposedly killed his father.
There's a lot of connection here.
A lot of connection, and that's just kind of an interesting thing throughout this movie, I suppose.
And then Fabrizio ends up dying too, because they get in a scuffle and he accidentally shoots himself.
And in classic fashion, the struggle, like they're like, struggling for the gun or whatever, and like it's nowhere near like pointing at Fabrizio, and you see this bang,
yeah,
and then like all of a sudden he's like bleeding out from the chest.
So it's like at this point, no matter wherever Lorenzo goes, like death follows him essentially.
Yeah, it's officially become like the trend. Like it's, and that's why it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell throughout this movie what's really like going down. Like somebody's like clearly messing with him, you think, throughout this whole thing.
Oh, and so okay, how we talked about the chase scene?
Yeah.
That hasn't happened yet. That happens next, because like the next scene is that Lorenzo goes to the cemetery to his dad's grave.
Oh yeah. You're right. He visits his dad's grave, and his gravestone says something like, to the effect of like, it's not what things aren't what they seem.
Like yeah, exactly.
And which is ominous as fuck, dude, to put on a gravestone.
Like, why would you put that on a grave? Yeah.
So almost, but then like shortly there, he's pouring a little out of his flask on out for his dad, and then like he, the detective guy shows up again, and like Lorenzo hides behind a tree, and it kind of like they take some glimpses.
Gets spotted, yeah.
He gets spotted, and that's when the epic chase ensues.
Mm-hmm.
Still such a great sequence, but then like that leads. Is that what leads directly into him going back to the theater?
No, he goes to Antonella's place, and he's freaking out, basically saying that like someone is killing all these people and trying to pin the blame on him. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, and there's this weird sequence where she like is kind of like comforting him, and she's just sort of like like
trying to calm him down. Yeah,
it'll all be all right, and it's just like. I thought at the moment I was like, what a weird thing to say, like kind of like say like, and then people are dying.
And then this is where the movie just gets super nutty, and from here on out, it's like I used the word ambiguous before. Like from here on out, it's one of those movies where all these weird things happen to where you're at the end, you're kind of left like up to your own devices as to what happened, like. Who's really the killer? Like, what's going on here? Because there's a lot of really weird things that happen.
Yeah, it definitely like it gets kind of confusing and like
for sure
in a way, and like part of it is just like you just there's like this. I don't want to call it like a flashback maybe, but there's this moment where like again like I think he's kind of like he's at like a theater or some sort of area.
Well,
anyway,
but before but before that, he's taken a bath.
Oh God, dude, that's right. That's I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, because this is where all the like craziness starts happening. He's
popping up here.
He's in the bath and he gets fucking. You think he gets stabbed? He gets stabbed to death by Antonella.
Yeah. I like the sequence is really, it's such an interestingly cool like shot, like so like in classic fashion, like like you pan to him in the bath, and it's like you see like a foot exactly where it needs to be, of course, and he's just like relaxing. And then in it was just like a very slasher kind of moment where it's just like all you see is like the knife, kind of coming down, and like slowly but surely, like all of a sudden, like it's a bloody mess in the bathtub.
And there's playing cards, yeah.
Yeah, there's playing cards just like kind of thrown on his body, it looks like.
And then there's a great shot. It's like a close up of Antonella's face, and there's blood splatter all over her face, and she just smiles this wicked smile and starts laughing. It's pretty creepy.
Yeah, that was actually like some of my in terms of like I don't know, acting moments in this movie, like the close up of her face, which lasts a good while.
Yeah,
honestly, it's a pretty long close up. It's just like you see her like almost like going through these like different like emotions without really like doing much with her facial expression, and then like all of a sudden like kind of creepily, like you're saying, laughing and smiling and stuff. It's like, I don't know, dude. It was so sinister. It was really cool.
Yeah. And also, just side note, like the actress for that role, like, and again with like a lot of these characters and the actors, they looked like they belonged in a 70s fucking movie. Yeah.
Like she had like these big, huge eyes that were like, I don't know. She looked like somebody from like a lady from the 70s. It was crazy. Anyway. Yeah, but she goes to like some sort of like room after this sequence, and there's like some like magician posters on the wall, and she places like the knife back down that she just stabbed Lorenzo with, like on like a like a little pedestal of sorts. And it seems like this has all been like kind of like at this moment you think it's like all of a sudden like Antonella's been killing all these people, right?
But yeah, it just gets weird,
But then the detective appears in the room.
Yep.
And is sitting there smoking and kind of lays out the like things, like he's like, what do you say? There's a really great line where it's like the perfect crime is not a crime that you get away with. It's a crime. It's like getting caught or getting people to like believe in a different crime or something like that. It was like this really interesting statement. But and this is where I was confused. Like, was he?
Well, because then it shows
like an actual like auxiliary character. You know what I mean?
I don't know. Because then it has this like flashback scene, and it's this satanic ritual, and you see that Lorenzo's dad is there, and his dad's assistant, and then a woman that looks like Antonella, but
not.
Yeah, and then Lorenzo as a kid stabs her to death. Yeah. And then it has another really weird scene where it flashes back to the future, or the present, I should say. And Antonella's like looking in the mirror. And as she's doing that, you also see Lorenzo in the mirror. And then it has these like other scenes where there's a bathtub with no blood. It shows a scene from the beginning where they're on a motorbike, and one of their like magic scenes. And it's just super, super weird where, in those scenes, it's both of them together, and then she's not there at all, and it's only Lorenzo.
Yeah, it was really strange. Like you were saying that you noted the bathtub, which like it flashes. It's like completely clean. It's not so it's like at all. I
don't think she was a character at all. It's so weird.
That's what I mean, dude. Like all of a sudden, like the very ending of this movie makes you call into question like
everything
about this movie. And yeah, I don't know if she was a character. I don't know if she was maybe just like perhaps for him a representation of the lady that he killed when he was a kid. And like the detective was maybe like his guilt over it or something like that, like chasing him as he goes. I don't know, dude. It was so interesting, but like so boggling.
Right after that, like he gets handcuffed, but then it shows they're in a car, and initially the detective's driving, and there's this really cool line where he has a monologue, and he's like, after ruling out the impossible, all that remains is the truth. And then it switches to where Lorenzo's driving the car by himself, and he's the only one in the car.
Exactly. And so it just makes
So-
you believe that like
He's just been
Lorenzo's
Yeah,
been like hallucinating all these things or like doing
possibly.
like, but do you think that he was murdering all these people? Like,
I mean, that's what I think, is that he, like, you know, he was introduced to this at such a young age or whatever. And and we also forgot, shows a scene where he's the one that switched the bullet. So it's like,
yeah, you're right. Yeah.
you know, so I think that that's what it is that he, because of killing all these people, like, he just became so disconnected from reality that he had these, you know, he dreamed up that these people were real when they really weren't. That's or something.
Yeah, which is it's a really, I mean, just a really interesting ending to this movie, because I like it when the movies do that sometimes, where it's just like because then it's like right here, it's like we're still trying to rack our brains.
It doesn't
to really,
explain,
to really figure it out, and so it's like it keeps the conversation open, you know.
Yeah.
I mean? But yeah, dude, it was like
This is another good movie. Like,
yeah,
I would
definitely.
recommend this movie to anybody. It's a quick watch, and you're hooked the whole time.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it clocks in at like an hour 10 minutes with credits. So
with credits, yeah.
So it's like it really is like you noted it perfectly earlier. It starts you off right into the movie, and it's just quick, just like ramp up the entire time. Like the story goes the entire time. There's not like a ton of lull. There's some good character moments, but there's not really like, I don't know. Everything has to do with the story, really. Like, like the actual, like, I don't know. It's just, yeah, it was definitely interesting. And the aesthetic of the movie alone, though, you could watch this for, you know.
Yeah.
Like the fact that, you know, the way people dressed looked the time period. The fact that like the playing cards they used looked like they were from the 70s. The phones that they used looked like they were from the 70s. You know, like it was so well done. Like I was so convinced that this was a movie of time. You know what I mean?
That's why after I watched it and I looked it up, I was like, it was directed by and I've never heard of these guys, but they're called the Onetti brothers. But yeah, it was made in 2018, but it's just insane to me because it. Yeah.
I really, you know, and there's definitely been like movies before where they, you know, obviously like they try to recapture that. I think one of the best examples that I can think of isn't really a horror, but the Grindhouse movies. Do you remember when Tarantino and what's his fucking face? You know what I'm talking about.
Robert Rodriguez,
Robert Rodriguez. Yeah, when they released those, it kind of like, you know, I think they did a pretty good job of kind of capturing some of the elements of that. This, though, goes all the way. Like when it comes to like capturing like a full-on experience of like a different time period and style of movie making.
You know, it's another really good one is it's a movie called The House of the Devil.
Oh my God, dude! I love
that movie.
You, David. That movie's so fucking good, and that is exactly. I thought about that movie exactly when I was watching this. I was like, "Holy shit!" This gives me the vibes of House of the Devil, where it was like immediately I did not think this movie was made recently.
It's like they use a camera from the 80s or whatever. Ty West did such a great job with that movie, but yeah, you're like, this is a fucking like lost 80s movie that just got found or something, but no.
Exactly, and that's 100% from beginning to end. Even though like I looked it up twice, like that's exactly what I kept thinking about this movie. I was just like, Abrakadabra just seems like it was like something that somebody like was like found in like an old, you know, storage locker
and restored it. Yeah.
It was really what a good watch.
It just, for me, that like gives me hope, because that gives me hope that, you know, that horror is going to be something that's always going to live on, and there's always going to be those people that want to pay their respects and have like a homage to older movies. I mean, they could have made the same movie with the same plot in present day, but they decided to do it this way, and it's just so fantastic.
I agree, man. I agree. I think, you know, there's something to be said about what you can pull off with modern technology and modern types of like filmmaking, you know, and that's one thing. But this is a complete homage to a different style of filmmaking and
I don't
the horror genre. And
I don't think I can notice any point in the movie. I'm convinced that it's 100% practical effects, because I don't remember any point where I was like, oh, that's some fucking stupid CGI.
No, yeah, I mean, I couldn't, even if there was, I really couldn't tell you, because it did
Exactly.
all like the death sequences look practical, it was just a really, really, they captured like just the whole aesthetic. And dude, I think you're right. Like, I think that as people continue to sort of age into like, mainstream, like as people continue to age into like working life and like being able to like get artistic stuff out there, we'll see more like true fans of like, deep horror.
Yeah.
That start popping up onto the scene, and you end up getting gems like these where it's, some people who clearly appreciate Italian horror. Anyway, I just think it's fantastic, and I wonder if this will be. I hope that we see, maybe some more things from this.
I want to see what else they've made, and I want to watch it. Like, I was blown away. So
yeah, and I from my understanding, this kind of all came out on like sort of like this newer horror movie label. So I think they like it's like a type of studio or whatever that's mainly focused on just doing horror. So I wonder if we look that up, I wonder what else like we could find from them.
Well, that's like one of the newer ones that have just been knocking movies out of the park is A24. They did The Witch. They did one of my favorite horror movies of all time now, and easily my favorite horror movie of the last like 6-7 years is Hereditary.
Word. Yeah.
So that's like,
great.
They keep pumping out fucking great movies.
Absolutely. Hell yeah, man. Yeah, dude, this was this was a solid pick. Like, I thought it was going to be a lot funnier when I watched it, but I am glad that it was
what it was. Yeah.
Because it was like we talk about movies horror movies you can laugh at a lot. Why? Because it's hella fun. But like, this and like the last episode that we did, we kind of touched on some really good, like really solid pieces of work. And that's always something to appreciate too. Like, it's like, obviously, like, it's almost, you appreciate them for different reasons in a lot of ways,
Totally.
But I don't know. It's just, this was a nice fucking movie to check out. I definitely recommend anybody to watch it. You know what I mean?
It was.
Like I told like at least 3 people at work about it today.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It was cool to take a little 2-episode detour and do some good movies, but I think we're gonna have to do a hard turn and do something fucking awful for the next episode.
Dude, you know it's gonna have to happen.
And then
you're gonna have to deal with it.
Part of the reason that we even started this is that at some point we're gonna have to talk about one of our mutual favorite awful horror movies, Pinocchio's Revenge.
Ooh,
like, eventually we got to do that. Yeah.
That's one that we know it's down the road at some point, but once we hit that moment, it's gonna be a juicy one. Yeah, man.
That might have to be like a special episode where we like, I don't know. That
should be our first live in-person episode.
That'd be cool.
That would be fucking sick. Like, yeah, that should be the goal. That'd be dope, dude. All right, I like this idea. Anyway, we'll keep working on that one, but we'll have to find something real juicy for the next episode.
Yes.
Oh man, but yeah, this one was just like a pure pleasure. I understand that like a couple of the actors, particularly the guy that played Lorenzo, he has like a pretty decent like how to say it, not reputation, but he's been like some of his other roles have been kind of regarded also. So
okay.
I just think it was just really interesting. Like, the cast was really awesome. The fucking the
small cast, it was good.
It was a small cast. You're right, dude. It was a really tight cast. Like, there's like 5-6 standout characters and then like a handful of just like backgrounds.
Well, and like we mentioned earlier with Antonella, is like that actress is gorgeous, and that's like with those 70s Italian horror movies, like it was always, and they were good actresses, but there were always just like these absolutely stunning Italian women to look at.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, it was like every actress was like a Bond girl, you know. It's like,
right.
It's like they were just all like meant to be like, I don't know, they were. I mean, yeah, they were always talent, but this movie was like, it was just really interesting because like the scenes she was in were like, she definitely kind of like captured the scene because she had these like facial expressions and like I don't know, just the way like her look just like kind of made you wonder like what the hell was her deal like every time you saw her, even though you were supposed to be focused on Lorenzo. And so it was kind of interesting just overall. Like the cast was fucking fantastic. I thought I thought the pacing of this movie was really incredible too, where it was just like
totally,
I don't know, man. There's not a bad thing about this movie that I can really bring up. You know what I mean?
Not at all.
Yeah, and that's actually like it's rare to find that. I feel like yeah, that's kind of cool.
Definitely. All right, my guy. Well,
we'll leave him off there. We'll have to, like you said, we'll take a hard turn for the next episode. We'll have to figure out something gross, something funny,
a gem. Yeah.
All right. A gem, something quintessential.
Oh Jesus!
All right, man.
All right, my dude.
Well, hey, I appreciate the hell out of you, man.
You too.
I love these podcasts.
Yeah.
And I know the hot dogs are loving them too, because honestly, they keep listening.